and welcome back to the Longevity Lab. So every time I talk about protein and what's the optimal amount of protein we should be having, or if I share that I have 120 to 140 grams of protein every day, I always get asked this one question: what about your kidney health? What about uric acid levels? So in this video, I want to do a functional medicine deep dive to really understand what drives uric acid levels, what damages your kidney, and why not having enough protein is one of the worst things we can do for our health. Every time I see a client who comes to me with high uric acid levels, I don't think too much protein. I think too much sugar, too much stress, and a metabolism that is literally crying for help. But people with high uric acid levels unfortunately are asked to stay away from protein, and they do that for years together, causing this very metabolic chaos. In fact, this fear association that we have created is one of the contributors of why we are so aggressively deficient in protein. And I'm talking about the Indian population, and this is the reason why we are facing a metabolic pandemic. We all know that India is the diabetes capital of the world. In fact, the recent ICMR Lancet study just showed what all of us have been saying for years together, how the normal Indian diet is the driver for the metabolic syndrome and the metabolic pandemic that we are seeing in our country today. So let's first understand, where did this myth come from? So long ago, there was a study that was done on patients of kidney disease. But somehow the outcome of this study got generalized, creating this fear association between protein and kidney damage. Science has long proven this wrong. In fact, recent studies, not so recent, but recent modern science studies, has shown that people on high protein diet have absolutely no issues with their kidney health, right? Or in simple words, high protein diet does not cause kidney damage. Now, why do I say not having enough protein is the worst thing that we can do for ourselves? Or why are we now talking about a low protein diet creating this pandemic or metabolic pandemic? So let's really understand protein for a second, right? Because another thing we associate protein with is just muscles. But protein is the very building block of who we are. When our body digests protein, it converts it into amino acids. And amino acids is the building blocks of everything from our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our enzymes, even DNA repair, our cells, our skin. Everything we are is built out of amino acid. But you know what is more important? Our body can store carbs into glucose, it can store fat in adipose tissues, but it has absolutely no mechanism to store protein, which means we need to replenish our amino acid pool every single day. Plus, our body can convert protein to carbs, carbs to fat, but it has no way of converting either carbs or fat to protein, which means specifically the essential amino acids needs to come in only through foods or supplement. And the next important thing is to understand how much protein do we really need. Every time I talk about 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kg of our ideal body weight, people think this is too high. This is actually baseline. Baseline for optimal metabolic health, optimal heart health, muscle and longevity, especially after 35 and more so for women when anabolic resistance starts to set in. You know, the recommended daily allowance that gets thrown around, that is based on old research that only focuses on keeping you disease free or dealing with diseases. It's not built for optimal health. The ODI or optimal daily allowances are much, much higher, and unfortunately a lot of you are not educated on this. So talking about just protein today, needing a 2 to 2.2 grams per kg of your ideal body weight is baseline. It's bare minimum for maintaining good health. It has no association with whether or not you're working out. If you are working out, your requirement goes even higher, but 2 to 2.2 grams per kg of your ideal body weight is a great starting point. Now, how do you figure out what your ideal body weight is? One of the simplest ways, if you don't know how to go about this, is to figure out what your actual or your healthy BMI looks like from your height to weight ratio. There are a lot of BMI calculators online. You know your height, enter your height, play around with different weights to find the right BMI value. Or for a lot of us, there was some point in time in our lives when we were at a weight which we knew or felt like was our ideal weight. So take that as the ideal weight to calculate your baseline requirement for protein. Now, also, since I mentioned anabolic resistance, let's quickly look at what that means. It simply means your body's ability to absorb and convert or use amino acids for everything we spoke about, from DNA repair to muscle creation to your cells, enzymes, etc., gets slower or just slows down, right? Which means technically your protein requirement actually increases with age rather than coming down. And unfortunately, the trend that I see in India is as we age, because we don't move so much, which is a completely different topic which we should be talking about, but as we age, we start to reduce our protein intake for some reason, when our body actually needs that protein to be able to maintain our health and keep us from losing muscle, which is our biggest metabolic tool. Alright, to summarize this, if your kidneys are healthy, protein will not damage your kidneys. So what actually does damage your kidneys? High blood sugar and insulin resistance, high blood pressure, oxidative stress and inflammation, and calcium without magnesium. See, I see a lot of people supplementing with calcium for absolutely no good reason and without balancing it with magnesium, which actually is an essential supplement all of you should be having. When you have excessive calcium without magnesium to balance it, it causes vascular calcification and increases your renal or your kidney and cardiac risk. So if you are supplementing with calcium, number one, you don't need to unless you actually have an issue with bone density or osteoporosis. But if you are, always balance it with a magnesium supplement and vitamin D3 with K2. And in general, you should be supplementing with magnesium and vitamin D3 and K2. See, we usually go about looking at things from a wrong lens. Unfortunately, the popular dialogues don't really talk about what is essential. Honestly, if we worried about sugar as much as we worry about high protein causing kidney damage, we wouldn't see people with the kind of kidney damage or high uric acids as much as we do see today. Alright, let's quickly talk about uric acid. So what exactly is uric acid? Uric acid is the end product of purine metabolism. Now, when it is in the bloodstream, it's actually an antioxidant. See, uric acid is not pure evil. But when it's inside the cells, specifically your vessels and your fat tissues, it becomes pro-oxidant or the opposite of antioxidant, and this is where the problem happens. Now, from a functional medicine lens, when we look at uric acid, we look at it as a marker of metabolic health. So when uric acid levels are high, we look at this as a marker of metabolic stress. It is linked with hypertension, with insulin resistance, with oxidative stress, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and cardiovascular risk. Let's talk about the root causes. So number one is metabolic syndrome, sugar, and insulin. See, in my practice, every time I see high levels of fasting insulin, I usually see high uric acid levels too. In fact, there's this pattern, right? High fasting insulin, belly fat, and high uric acid. You'll understand this when you understand the mechanism. So fructose, which comes from sugary drinks, desserts, and even your healthy fruit juices, this is metabolized in your liver. When this is metabolized, ATP burn happens really quick, creating AMP and creating uric acid. But when the blood sugar levels rise, your body releases insulin to manage blood sugar. We've spoken about this a couple of times. When your blood sugar continues to remain high, or the intake of glucose continues to remain high, your body is constantly releasing insulin and your insulin levels continue to remain high. When there is hyperinsulinemia, which can happen because of a high glucose load in your diet, or when this high glucose load in your diet ends up creating enough stress where your insulin receptors stop responding to insulin, and now your body needs to pump out even more insulin to balance blood sugar even when blood sugar is not chronically high. So hyperinsulinemia leads to slowing down the rate at which your kidney excretes uric acid, thereby increasing your uric acid levels. And now the problem is that our typical Indian diet is sky high in carbs, really low in protein and healthy fats. Like I said, the recent ISMR Lancet study has finally shown that how this typical Indian diet, which really lacks protein and is extremely high in carbs, is leading to the metabolic disorders and the metabolic pandemic. But This is also the reason why we see a lot of people walking around with insulin resistance without even knowing about it. I kid you not, almost 95% of the people who come to me have insulin resistance. And I just explained how insulin resistance is directly linked to high uric acid levels. So the problem is not the protein in your diet, it is the endless refined carbs and sugar intake. The second common root cause is oxidative stress and mitochondrial overload. Oxidative stress is simply when the toxin load in your body becomes more than its antioxidant activity, and mitochondria is the energy plant in your cells where the energy creation actually happens. Another pattern which is very common is high uric acid levels, high GGT levels, high homocysteine levels, and high triglyceride levels. When we see this, we read it as oxidative stress, mitochondrial load or a sluggish mitochondria, and a sluggish detox system, or your detox pathways have slowed down or become sluggish. See, a lot of us think that detox is something that happens in a resort or over a diet or over a juice fest. But detox is something your body does every single day. Your natural pathways, when they become sluggish, that is when your toxin load starts to build up. And there are multiple ways in which we can optimize or support our body's detox pathways. Okay, let's quickly talk about the markers that I mentioned. So GGT is not just a liver enzyme, it is also linked with oxidative stress and metabolic risk. Homocysteine is linked with your methylation pathways, which is part of your phase 2 detox, and it's also a marker linked with endothelial damage and usually goes hand in hand with high uric acid levels. Now, for a lot of markers that I mentioned in this video, I am going to link the optimal ranges in the caption below. Keep in mind the reference ranges you see in the blood report are different from the optimal ranges. The reference ranges want to look for a state of disease. Optimal ranges want to look for optimal function and the ability to catch imbalances before they turn into a disease. All right, now the third root cause is leaky gut, endotoxin load, and the liver-gut axis. Now, research is still evolving in this, but the correlation is strong enough for me to mention this because every time I see high uric acid levels with gut symptoms and an imbalanced liver panel, I know that I have to fix the gut first. It's because more often than not, when people come in with severe gut issues and gut dysbiosis, SIBO or SIFO, skin issues, histamine sensitivity, and I can see that the uric acid levels are high and the inflammatory markers are high, I know that there is a leaky gut. When there is a leaky gut, your gut lining is leaky. That means endotoxins are getting pushed into your bloodstream, which is going to raise inflammation and which is also going to increase the toxin load in the system. And all of this is interlinked with high uric acid levels. So if you see such a pattern or you think you have such a pattern, you have to begin with healing your gut first. Also, certain medications, specifically immunosuppressants, if you're on them, then they do reduce the excretion of uric acid, which will lead to high uric acid levels. Plus, I always say, if you think you're doing everything right and your uric acid levels continue to remain high, having done everything, not only from a diet perspective or a glucose load perspective, having enough protein, making sure your gut is healthy, making sure your detox pathways are optimized, and if this still continues to stay high, also make sure that you don't have genetic variants which are leading to uric acid levels being high. If you do, then you can work on nutrigenomic interventions, because while yes, genetic variations can play a role, like I say this often, genes is only 20% of the story. It's good to be aware of what your susceptibilities are so you can make the epigenetic changes, which is your lifestyle changes, your diet changes, so that that gene doesn't become a problem. Okay, so we've talked about the problem enough. Let's talk about the solution. If you have high uric acid levels while you think that everything else looks fine, you've done everything right, your diet is correct, your lifestyle is correct, then get these markers tested first. Your fasting insulin, fasting glucose, HbA1c, lipid markers, specifically triglyceride and HDL or high density lipoprotein, GGT and ALT, which is part of your liver panel, homocysteine, ferritin, and HSCRP, your inflammation marker. Again, I'm mentioning all the optimal ranges in the caption below. Once you get these tested, you have a clearer picture of what the possible root causes look like. Now, alongside this, the general changes that you should be doing, of course, you can correlate it with the markers, but number one, cutting down sugar and refined carbs or reducing the glucose load in your diet, especially eradicating fructose, while increasing your protein intake and ensuring that you're achieving the baseline which is 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kg of your ideal body weight. We spoke about how to figure out your ideal body weight earlier. Now, also building muscle is one of the best ways to improve your insulin sensitivity. Your muscles are literally your blood sugar sinks and your metabolic tools. The more lean muscle mass you have, the better your body is at managing your blood sugar levels and maintaining insulin sensitivity, along, of course, a lot of the other benefits that you get. Plus, supporting your gut and liver access, making sure your gut is extremely healthy. That means your digestion and your elimination, your bowel movement is seamless and regular, while your liver is functioning correctly and there's absolutely no hepatic stress. And if you see any oxidative stress markers, then make sure that you are supporting your detox pathways by, of course, increasing your water intake with electrolytes, making sure you're supplementing with magnesium, with N-acetylcysteine, glycine, L-taurine. Alright, so to summarize this, high uric acid levels is a metabolic and inflammatory signal. It's not a sign that your body cannot manage protein. And high protein diets, which actually 2 to 2.2 grams per kg of your ideal body weight, is not even high protein. It is ideal protein diet, is not going to damage your kidneys. Alright, important disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is for education purposes only. If you want to get individual health advice, then you can reach out to me for consultation, send me your blood markers, and we can talk about health advice on a one-on-one basis. Thank you. All the best.